the Renters Reform Bill or Act, whatever they're going to call it. I'm not sure they've made up their mind yet. And stamp duty land tax. Well, what's that got to do with each other then? Well, nothing normally, nothing at all. However, there is a change now. Oh, the dog's seen a squirrel. It's a squirrel, all right. He'll come back. Stamp duty is only normally paid by people buying houses. Quite right. Yep, you're right. That's normally the case. However, there is a little known rule that if the total value of your rent you've ever paid is going to or does exceed £125,000, which is a lot of money, but not that much money, and this is the important bit, you have an unlimited tenancy agreement or contract. So it needs to be unlimited. Now, the 1988 Housing Act brought in the assured short-hold tenancy, which was great. You had 6 months or 12 months. Indeed, you could write whatever you wanted on the contract. But the new Renters Reform Bill Act, we don't know what it's going to call, has changed that. From the 1st of May 2026, it remains now a periodic tenancy. So it's an unlimited contract now. So there's no time limit. If you want to stay in that house for that length of time, for whatever, many 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years, you can stay there forever. It's unlimited. And now that changes everything. What that means is if it's calculated that your rent will exceed 125,000, you have to pay 1% in stamp duty per annum. Now here's the thing, there's a lot of they don't really understand it yet because nobody thought it through. Now this is not a blue party or a red party thing. Labour's brought it in, the blue party started it. It's very muddy here, so let me walk over that. So they either didn't think about it because they haven't got any legislation in for it, or they may have thought about it and said, yeah, we'll let it go. Because at the moment, there is literally, I've Googled it, so please feel free to Google it yourself. There's literally a handful of people that pay this stamp duty. And when I say a handful, I think it's around 300, because 125,000 in rent is an awful lot of money. If you've got, say, a flat and you're paying £1,000 a month, that's 12,000 a year. Well, are you really going to stay there for 10 years and then carry on? And also, this is the important bit, you have a set period contract. So once that contract is stopped and you get a new contract, you're exempt anyway. So there's just a handful of people that pay it so far. Now the amount you have to pay, the 1%, is actually very small, quite small. But the problem is, you have to do a tax return. Most tenants, if they're in there for a long time, they don't really want to put a separate tax return in and then find that you've got you haven't put your tax return in and you have a fine of £100. And then if, I think, is it 6 months, if you still don't put another one in, there's a £200 fine. So the fines could be actually more than what you'd actually pay. But that's not the point. You see, if you have a large domestic house, say a student house where you've got one contract, and you've got, say, I mean, it's quite often London, some of the areas, Bristol as well, you've got a large house with, say, 6 or 7 students, you could easily be paying 8, 9, maybe even £10,000, especially in London, for a house per month. Well, you have to calculate that immediately. So therefore, they're going to say, right, the first year, you're not going to exceed 125,000. If, say, you have a worst case scenario, you have one tenancy, it's now indefinite, and it's £10,000 a month. What that means is that's 120,000 for the year. Okay, you're under the threshold. Yes, you are, but it's calculated that you won't be. So therefore, you need a tax return. and therefore you need to submit it to HMRC and pay the necessary stamp duty. There are other things. This periodic tenancy, you have a tenancy right now. From the 1st of May 2026, that tenancy will transfer to an indefinite periodic tenancy. Well, there are a number of people already that are on periodic tenancies, indefinite tenancies, and they've been there for many years. Well, what happens there is you have to back calculate it, because now you can't just sign a new tenancy. Well, not from the 1st of May. This new tenancy, it needs to be, and HMRC have confirmed, it has to be substantially different. So you can't say, so it starts from the 1st of May 2026. The dog is sat in a puddle. Oh, she got to get in my car now. Okay. From the 1st of May 2026, you could go a year in and say, well, that's okay, I'll sign a new tenancy. No, you have an indefinite tenancy, and you can't just sign a new contract because you've already got an indefinite tenancy. Now, HMRC says it must be substantially different. So you can't go through the terms and conditions and say, well, I'll tell you what, we'll take out the, you don't have to cut the grass in the garden, and we'll trim the bushes and manage the garden. There you are, how's that? That's a change in, no, it's not substantial. Substantial means things like you got to move. Now, no one said that you've got to move unless you want to start putting in an inland revenue tax return and start paying stamp duty. Now, they're calculating that this handful, and I mean like 300, is going to grow. Now, as I was saying, there's this handful of very elite people with probably big houses that I would imagine there's quite a lot more there. I think they're saying like 300 handful in the country. They're saying by 2 or 3 years time it could be 150,000, and by 5 years time it could be 300,000. But if HMRC get their view on this and see that there is stuff to be made, then there could be a lot of changes, and what that could mean is that they'll begin to look into it and find out how many people are on indefinite contracts, because now everybody's on an indefinite contract, so that could carry on. Now, this matter about putting in a tax return or not putting in a tax return and getting a fine and then a bigger fine, and having to pay an extra bit of money for it, because we don't know how much it is. Right this very moment, it's 1%. Now, back when I was a kid, buying houses, stamp duty was 1%. I remember it quite well. I was ever so young. I mean, I'm old now and got no hair. But when I was a kid, stamp duty was 1%, and now it's a sliding scale. And some of it, I think, maximum bit is 12%, I think, with, if it's a second house, a 5% uplift on everything. So wow, if you want to buy £1 million house, the stamp duty on that is like 50 grand. I don't know, but they either get rid of this, change the legislation on it, or just leave it. Just leave it, and then tenants will have to start paying stamp duty. So I guess the question here is this something that the blue or the red party knew about but just kind of ignored and said it'll be all right? Or did they know about it and think, you know what, why don't we just let it go, and that can be an extra form of income in future years coming from tenants? So the Renters Reform Bill Act, whatever they're going to call it, which starts from the 1st of May 2026, is going to introduce this as people start then having indefinite contracts. I say all of this, and all of this is Googleable, so you can find it. Now here's the problem. it's all up for change. It's all up for, are they going to do it? Are they not? Are they going to change the legislation? Are they not? EPCs just changed a couple of weeks ago. They're looking at everything. So it could stay, it could not, it could get worse. They could say, to hell with 1% because it's not worth collecting a couple of £100 for the year. Or is it? Does the Inland Revenue put resources into a few 100,000 people collecting a couple of £100, or do they say it's now 5% of your rent above it? Who's to know? Or do renters now have to say, right, well, in that case, every, say, few years when you come eligible, you have to move. Literally have to move. So those people right now on periodic tenancies that have been in a place for the last 10 or 15 years, they need to be reassessing where they're going to go, because they're going to be looking at it. Someone's going to be looking at it, and I bet the Inland Revenue will. I say Inland Revenue, it's the government, isn't it? There's no particular person that has it in for you. It's the government, and they want money. Well, there you go. Stamp duty for tenants to pay, not people buying houses.